And we are reading in Luke chapter 20 this week. As you're reading the chapter, notice, I think, the big idea here, Jeff, is we got a conflict already existing,
Right.
but now it is really blowing up, getting more and more intense between Jesus and his enemies.
Oh, that's right. Remember, the last chapter ended with Jesus cleansing the temple. He's not really had conflict with the Jewish authorities. He's been messing with local folks and Pharisees, but now he's talked about his concerns about the temple. He's cleansed the temple. Now he enters into direct conflict with the chief priests, the scribes, the religious leaders, the Sadducees, the religious leaders at the temple in Jerusalem.
So the best way, I think, if we wanted to give it a little structure as people read through the chapter, is just to watch for the back and forth
Right.
of this conflict, because that's
Right.
really what it does. It kind of goes back and forth 4 different times,
That's right.
starting with the elders confronting him in the first 8 verses and by what authority are you doing these things you're doing? Looking
Right.
back on the cleansing, I think, that had just
Right.
taken place.
Correct.
And then he responds to them beginning in verse 9 with a parable
Right.
that is clearly about them.
Oh, they understand it exactly. I mean, that's the thing. Verse 19 makes very clear that they understood that this was about them and wanted to take him out right then and there. But like John the Baptist, they feared the people.
I think that's a really important phrase in verse 19 to mark. I bracketed that in on my text because the fear of the people. I mean, I think some would wonder, if they don't want Jesus around, why don't they just do something about
Right.
it? And it wasn't that simple. They were fearful about the reactions of the crowds because of his popularity. They'd seen the triumphal entry.
Well, and the irony then is who's really in charge here, who actually has the authority on the Temple Mount.
That is exactly right. It's so all the way through the end of the story. Now keep that in mind as we go through the rest of Luke, that they're wrestling with this problem of the enthusiastic crowds who are
Right.
supportive of him. So we see that at the end of this parable, which
Right.
is clearly a criticism of them. They come back, and I think what happens in 20 through 40 is designed to deal with his popularity. It's all about
Right.
trying to discredit him.
Right.
And so you have these questions. First, they come and ask him about taxes, because evidently people back then didn't like paying taxes
Right.
any more than we do.
And it's
then-
really a no-win. They think they have a no-win question for
Right,
him
right.
that he blows up on them.
But both times it's
Right.
like we're gonna put him on the horns of a dilemma,
Right.
And no matter how he answers, he'll be in trouble. That leads us to the Sadducee question about the resurrection,
Right.
And each time, of course, what he does,
Right.
is he leaves his enemies speechless
Because they frame their questions the wrong way.
well, and so in the close of the chapter,
It's his turn.
Jesus comes back with a question
Right.
of his own,
Right. It's his turn to ask a difficult question.
And of course, every time he does that, his enemies can't answer,
Right.
and they wind up going away
Right.
embarrassed. You are just not going to pull one over on Jesus.
That's right.
And
That's
that
right.
becomes clear as we go through the chapter. Well, that's chapter 20. That's the big idea, this emerging conflict that's intensifying, and the back and forth between him and his enemies. Watch for that as you spend some time in Luke 20 this week.